One of the keys to breakthrough in your marriage is exactly what we've talked about today, is you have to learn how to focus on yourself, get your own self right, learn how to point out the positives in your spouse, and watch and see what happens. Hey guys, well, welcome back to another episode of the Champion Life Podcast. I'm your host, Curt Tucker, and today I have my lovely wife, Rachel, in the house. We're actually not in the house. We're at Aileron, one of our favorite spots in the Dayton, Ohio area. We're in the dream room. We're dreaming up some stuff. And we wanted to bring you guys an episode today on marriage. And so if this is an area where you're wanting to grow in right now, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're kicking butt in so many different areas, but you're like, hey, I feel like my marriage could go to the next level. My relationship could go to the next level. We've got a great episode for you, because here's one thing that we firmly believe is if you want to create and go from a good marriage to a great marriage, or even a world-class marriage, one of the things that you're going to need to learn how to do is focus on yourself. And here's what I mean by that is going next level is going to require you to focus more on yourself than the other person and what they may be doing right, or like we like to sometimes focus on what they're doing wrong. So anyhow, in today's episode, we're going to give you guys just a few tips and tricks that have helped us in our almost 20 years of marriage overcome these types of things as we are working from good to great and now to what I would say world class. So welcome to the show, Mrs. Tucker. How are you?
Best day ever.
So let's get in for the audience today on, first of all, for you, how have you navigated this subject of learning how to, because we're busy, right? Like over the years, we've built different businesses. We've got 4 kids. We're involved in our church. We're involved in a lot of different things. And so, we've had a few strifes in our marriage from time to time, would you say? So how have you navigated through this subject of us just being busy and me sometimes not being, the greatest husband or my focus where it needs to be at? But how have you not allowed that to, cause what you see with some of your clients, right? Or you see with women, where it causes so much friction in their marriage because they're so focused on the other spouse and what they are not doing. How have you handled that in our marriage?
Well, obviously, is there a lot of failing forward, just a lot of failing forward. I was blessed with a spiritual mom straight out the gate. Like, that should have been my sign that I was going to be used to heal marriages, because I work with women who are just rock stars, like in the business, even amazing moms, but their marriage is, it's not a focus. There's some sort of disconnection there, or bitterness, or expectations that you can tell that it's just kind of like happening. And a lot of times it's because they don't know. They've not studied it. They may even study their Bible, but the subject of marriage, or what's my role as a wife in the marriage, they've not done it. And a lot of times, here's what I'm knowing is, and especially people like me, women who are just entrepreneurs, and we have many, like, for us, it's like we need tangible results. So it's easy for us to go rock out a business and we get celebrated and we get put on stage and we get accolades. So it's tangible, but in our marriage, they can't find that. But so my goal is to get you to find that. So fruit in marriage looks like amazing children, amazing adults, that children that have become amazing adults and they've seen their parents, like for us, like we don't shy. Like, we'll get in a disagreement at a dinner table with a couple. Like, it just happens. We're not fake people. Like, I think one of our actually strengths is we bring ourselves. What you see on here is exactly what happens
That's what you get.
It's exactly what it is. And I think that's endearing, actually. I think people
Yeah.
follow us for that reason.
My brother has commented on that multiple times. Like Curt and Rachel aren't afraid to just like hash it out. You know what I mean? But we hash it out. But one thing we've learned how to do is to forgive fast, and to not allow a little, fight, let's just say, or a disagreement or intense fellowship to lag on for, days and weeks and months or fester versus learning to just say, hey, I apologize, please forgive me, and learn the lesson and move on.
So to answer your question, so here is over my 20 years of learning how to be a great wife, is that I've noticed that, and then working with other women, it's the expectations that we place on the man. And I'm not insulting men at all, but I always like to get women to understand that men's brains are not the same as our brains. Like a woman could be sitting on the beach and they're there vacationing, and a woman's sitting in the chair and she's thinking about, did I turn the coffee pot off? I wonder if Maverick's going to get feed. Are they going to let him out? Are they going to put him on the leash? Did they lock the door? All these things. And you pan the camera over to the guy and he's sitting in the chair going, man, I wonder what we're going to eat today. And it's not insulting the guy.
Are we
I'm
gonna
just
have sex tonight?
exactly. I'm just trying to tell you. But so the woman has all of this stuff going on her head, and usually a lot of it isn't even coming out her mouth. So especially with the expectations, like they expect the husband to pick up after themselves. Why don't you lend a hand in the kitchen? Da 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 da. And all this stuff is but it's not coming out here. So for me, the biggest thing, and something I covered today with a client, was when you guys can just sit down and clearly communicate things. And then also, I was just telling my husband this because I think I'm an excellent communicator. It's what I'm known for. So as a communicator, I have to make sure the message got over. I can't just, I told you already. No, it's because of how his brain works and his personality that I need to confirm that what I said to him is actually what he heard. It's my job. It's not his job. I already told you, you always do that. So it's those always and never, but it's the expectations that we put these expectations on the husband that we're setting him up. We're setting him up to fail. Is he always going to, especially with being married to a guy that didn't grow up in the home that my kids grew up in. My kids have seen us, love. They've seen us, everything that we do, how to treat a wife, like how to manage the home, like as a husband, like he didn't have that. So I actually have to give him more grace. It's the chivalry thing has taken him a really long time because he just didn't grow up in the house like that. So does he still walk ahead of me? Yes. Does he still not open the door for me? Yes. Does he still run over me because he's on his phone? Yes. But those are the things that I have to give grace to because those are the expectations that I've placed. But I've learned, because this is humility. This is humility when you can take a step back and be like, why are they doing that? And for me, I just have to go back to, I just have to fan the flame on the things that he's doing really good. So when he does actually stop and want to walk with me in public and hold me close, I will I don't know if I do this all the time, but I should be like, I love this. Please keep doing this versus you never do that. That's not fanning.
It's really, like training, right? A puppy, like when you train somebody like a dog, and I'm not saying us men are dogs, but I mean, it really is the concept of when we get recognized for something that we did good at, there's more likelihood that we're going to want to do that over and over again versus when, we don't get, recognized and it's like, hey, and we talk about the 80-20 rule a lot, where it's like, hey, if we just learned how to focus on the 80% that the person is doing well versus the 20% that they're not.
Yeah.
Right? And that really does go back to the title of this episode, is if you want to go and create a great marriage, learn how to focus on yourself, because focusing on yourself is saying, hey, listen, how can I control, recognizing my spouse for the things that they are doing, right, versus the things that they're not doing, right? And think about that, friends. Like, how often do you catch yourself, complaining, or blaming? Because those are the two quickest ways to create strife in a relationship, is the complain and the blame game. If it's always somebody else's fault, you never have power in control over your own mindset or your own emotions, right? If it's always, well, if they would just do this, or they would have done that, or, when we coach people, and people begin to tell me about things that happened to them when they were a kid, and it was 20 years ago, that, well, maybe my dad did this or my dad did that. And I'm like, man, I firmly believe, I talk about this in my book. I just so happen to read this part in the chapter of, like, man, I'm so grateful and thankful that, there's certain things that my dad did the way that he did, because I learned a lesson there, and I'm the dad that I am today because of what he didn't do correctly.
Yeah.
So I could blame him and I could complain about what happened or didn't happen for me as a kid growing up, or I let that be a lesson to me, right? So from the context of marriage, is how often, and you have to be self-aware about this. Like, that's the reason why one of the things that you and I are big believers in is journaling, is taking time to write things down in our quiet time in the morning when we're with the Holy Spirit, and saying, okay, download these things to me, and realizing that, hey, maybe I need to, stop complaining about this or blaming about that, focusing on ourselves. So for you, what would you say, and I just kind of gave a couple practical tips there that hopefully you caught, friends, is one of the things that Rachel and I wholeheartedly believe in, is having quiet time together in the morning, separate from each other, so that we can meet. I had a person today ask me, like, how do you develop a personal relationship with Jesus? Just like you develop a personal relationship with anybody else, you got to spend time with them. But no relationship can be developed if one person is talking the whole time, and the other person isn't willing to listen, right? It's communication, is two people communicating back and forth. So there's time where you're going to ask God for wisdom, but then you also got to be quiet and you got to be willing to listen. And I like to listen and then write things down, so that I can develop. So what would you say would be, I just think that's a tip for people to have daily quiet time, because if they want to grow and they want to become a better spouse and they want to learn to focus on their self, I think that's one way that people can do it. What else would you say to that topic has maybe helped you?
Just humility, and just realizing, like, the needs thing. Like, he doesn't need security, I do. You know what I'm saying? I actually am different than most women, the whole love and respect thing. But in most marriages, like, I don't need respect, he does. So if you think about, like, what is it? There's a great book that we probably should reread ourselves called His Needs, Her Needs. And it kind of goes along with the love language thing. Like, it's not like, his isn't gifts, mine's number one gifts, but he doesn't need me to buy me gifts. I need him to buy me gifts. And it's not about the gift, it's about, I thought you were on my mind.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you, forethought. And, like, in this year, both of us failed in this area because of a busy season. So we're kind of like working through this as we're talking about it right now, like looking back over the year, and like we both were out of town on our birthdays. I did not forethought think it ahead. I even had it done, like, I'm gonna do it right this time, and we're there, and there's no card, there's no birthday cake, and then we were in Florida for
California, yeah.
and it's like, and birthdays, like, and birthdays are special to me because I'm not your typical person who celebrates for the whole month or the whole week. It's my birthday week. I'm like, I'm a servant of God. So but I do give myself one day that I want to be special, and the focus is on me for one day, and then that's it. So if that one day gets screwed up, it could really throw somebody into a spiral. But for me, I just learned how to be humble and not place the expectations, give him more grace, because he's the extra grace required guy, as I am. Like, we don't get it right all the time. We're stubborn sometimes, and we just need extra chances. And that's what the Bible tells us to do. Like, how many times? 490.
7, yeah. Which basically
everything, but
Jesus was meaning infinity.
Infinity, but when he says, that's 490, I think it is. I don't know math, but whatever. So for me, it's just the expectation thing, but the humility, but understanding what your needs are not my needs, and my needs are not your needs. But when we approach it as a servant relationship, the focus should be your needs, and your focus should be my needs. And that doesn't look like, well, what can I do for Rachel that way I can tonight? Well, I know that focus, but if I know that you're genuinely seeking to serve me first, it's going to be a natural, like, I want to, like, that's what gets my motor running. It's not like but that's also stinking thinking. It's me thinking he always does that. Those need to be stricken out of your vocabulary. And I'm preaching to myself here because I do that sometimes still. He always does that. He's never going to stop doing that. He never does this. And this is the belief system. And so in coaching a client today, we talk about rewiring a connection. So if you are going to rewire that same connection of, he never does that, what'd you do? You just rewired it one more time. Versus, let's change our belief. And let's write down the man that you believe him to be, the one that God created him to be. And then those are the things that we're going to pull out of him and focus on. Then you're going to rewire that, right? We're going to rewire that. I'm going to rewire that. And I'm going to believe for it. Because everything rises. And what is faith? It's a belief. So I'm believing for it. I know that he doesn't ever fail me. Curt's going to fail me. But he's always told me, blessed is she who believed. So I'm still believing, and I believe like a lot. I'm not taking credit for who he's become, but I'm taking my own credit because of who I have become and the wife that I am. And I'm hard to be married to, I'm sure. Somebody like me, especially if you're not ready to hear the things. It's not my job to, you did this wrong, you do this wrong, you do this wrong. It's my job to focus on the areas that, okay, these are areas that I can believe for that will change. And while working on myself, because it's just when until the boy becomes the man, right? Or the woman or the girl becomes the woman, we have to have peace in our home. And there's never going to be peace in the home if you're constantly focused on, never does that, he always does that, you don't do this right, you don't pick up, there's not going to be peace. So we have to find peace in the process of the sanctification process and the transformation process, and not, and everything will be great and everything's good, he's got peace of mind, then all of a sudden out of the blue, he loses his crap and slams the door, like, out of the blue, and you're just like, what happened? But I did not go and like, I just was like, you know what? It's not me. It's not about me at all. So I'm not going to go fuel the fire. I'm just going to walk away and step away and believe that that was just a tired, hungry, lonely outburst.
You guys know what we're talking about there? They call it the what? The halt. That when certain things happen in your relationship, that there could be a halt going on, which means that there's some type of hunger, there's some type of anger, there's some type of loneliness or tired. And it may not be that that person is angry at you, for instance. It could be that there's just something happening on and your spouse's business, career, something didn't go a certain way, and just naturally we have to be mindful to try to not take things out on someone else. But you've heard that said, that sometimes you might run into somebody and they might be having a bad day. You might not know what's happening in their life, but naturally just something happens and you were the person, right? And you got the blunt end of it, right? And I think that's one thing we learned, was a thing called safe talk, where sometimes you just need to be that person, ladies, that the guy can say, hey, this is just, I had a really bad day today, and because he might not be able to go and talk about that day to a lot of people, right? Because as men, we're told, you can't be weak, you can't be real, you can't be raw, where sometimes in a safe place, you can just be like, hey, I had a crappy day today, right? And vice versa. But one of the things that you said that I think is important to point out to everybody here is that, there's an expectation when you have two high level people, because I believe that some of you who are listening to this podcast, are high level people. You are drivers. You want to get things done. You want to make things happen. You're building businesses. You're leaders. And so there is a natural tendency to have an expectation from your spouse to level up, right? To be a champion, to do more than the average person. Because, when we say, like, I know for you, when you say, well, I just need to make sure that I don't, have, I need to lower my expectations for you, you'll say sometimes. And in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I don't want you to lower your expectations of me from a framework of I'm just going to become this lazy dude and not work out and not want to make more money and provide for the family and not, go next level in my personal development, not be a great husband or a great dad. I think what you're saying is that, hey, listen, I'm going to give you grace when you don't maybe do whatever, right? You know what I mean? I'm going to point out the things that you're doing good, and I'm going to pray, for the things that you need to level up on, right? Because at the end of the day, like, the point here, friends, is that you're not going to change your spouse,
Right.
right?
You're not God.
Like the greatest thing the greatest thing that Rachel did for us in our marriage, the greatest thing that you did for us, honey, was that you just were the trailblazer. That you were just like, hey, I'm going all in on Jesus. I'm not worried about what Curt does or doesn't do. I'm just going to go do this. And I really truly believe, for most people, when you see your spouse level up, when you see your spouse just go out there and start kicking butt and doing what maybe they said they were gonna do for years, and now all of a sudden they start doing it, like, words don't even need to be said, because you literally are seeing it happen, and it naturally, I believe, for most people, gives them the desire to do more themselves, right? Like when you see your spouse just going out and crushing
And
it.
you want to see them, they look like they're leaving you too. And it kind of like, I better catch up.
You know how many in the fitness world and in the gym business, where when women would start taking care of themselves, naturally husbands would begin to start getting jealous at first. They would be all like, I don't understand, like, why are you working out? And an insecure man would start to, like, literally, because I've had thousands of conversations almost with mostly women who would come into the gyms and would come into our fitness program, and it'd be so surprising to me how many unsupportive husbands didn't really support them. And it was for one of two reasons. Either one, they had tried so many other different things, so they were pretty much just speaking death upon them already, right? Your words that come out of your mouth, you're literally, everything you say out of your mouth, by the way, you are prophesying your life.
Yeah.
Like, what, your words create your world, right? So it would be that, or they would be literally in fear, right? And that's what people do, by the way. Garrett J. White says this, why would you wait to, lose it all and get divorced and then all of a sudden decide you want to start working out? I want to start taking care of myself. I want to start treating my spouse right. I want to start doing this, because that's what you're going to do in the next relationship. You're going to start working out. You're going to start paying a little bit more attention to detail. You're going to start doing this or that. Why don't you just go ahead and start doing that now, but it goes back to focusing on the self, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so anyhow, so I just want to encourage you, if you're listening to this today, if you're driving or you're watching this video or whatever, understand two things. Number one, we've been there. But number two is how we fix this major problem in our marriage that was keeping us and having an average marriage, let alone a good or a great or a world class, was when you decided to go all in on your journey with Jesus and stop focusing so much on me and focusing on you, to where when you did that, I saw something different about you, and it naturally made me want to be better, which was a game changer years ago.
And I stood up and kind of set a boundary and said, it's time. So kind of like said, I remember that last time I was like, you're not coming back.
Which was a knockdown, drag out
It
fight, by the way.
was,
For
it
those of you
was.
guys who know our story, I mean, we're not talking like, oh, we had a little
No.
disagreement
We're
over
blood sisters
money
in the mud wrestle.
or whatever. I mean, we had a very, at that point,
Yeah.
and I hope you're not in that situation, and this was just where we were at, but it was a very, I was an
Toxic.
alcohol, angry, abusive man at that point,
Yeah.
right? Where you had kind of said, listen, I'm standing up, and it is a boundary. And I did think it was, over at that point. So, I hope that gives you hope on here, by the way, that if you're
But let
just
me
like,
say this though, like this is the main point that I want to get across to everybody. Why are a lot of marriages struggling? There's no focus. It's not a focus point. It's like last on the list. Like you get home and you're exhausted. You've given everybody to everybody else, and then you come home and you're mad because the husband's not like. You come home to a messy house and it's all loud and
kids are
because
doing this and
but
that.
that's the thing. And see, with women like myself and the women I coach, it's easier for them to focus on the businesses again because they're getting recognized. They're getting, they're moving and their marriage is not. Why? It's not a focus point. They're not focused on it. They're not getting the attention. And so it's like you wonder why. And I heard that same thing from Gary J. White. You see all these people, their marriages are struggling, but you go and these people are like out of shape, they're overweight, their kids, their kids are though dressed in the best clothes. They got
every sport, they're in
sport.
they got a coach for this, they got a coach for that.
But the parents are just no. But if it doesn't work out, you see it all the time. The people in the gym getting in shape. Well, you should have done that before. You know why you didn't? Because your marriage isn't a focus. Your kids are the focus, or all the things that you think that you're going to win at are a focus. And so I get it. I did not grow up in a marriage home either. So for both of us, we struggled in the first part of our marriage because we didn't.
It wasn't a priority.
It wasn't a priority. And even for me, in the beginning, all in for Jesus, my hair was set on fire. I wanted to go change lives. And I did that forever. And my 500-pound lion, if you've ever read Chase the Lion, that big, hairy, audacious goal used to be something else, something for the kingdom, something that is measurable, that all the people who said I would never be anything or I should marry a rich man would see. When today, I wrote it down in my journal today, my 500-pound lion is my marriage. That's the thing that I'm going to get asked about when I meet my Father in heaven. It's not going to be about the books I wrote. As a matter of fact, my kids don't even know any of those. They have no idea really probably what I do or none of that. And I'm not going to get asked those questions. How many books did you sell?
How much money did you
How
make?
much money did you make? Was Curt a good husband? No, it's all going to be about me. What kind of wife were you? So see, I'm about my daddy's business. And so for me, like everything has shifted for me and I'm a work in process. Like I am different today than I was. My whole mindset is different today than it was probably a couple months ago in marriage, but I've been leading in this direction. My whole entire marriage with this man has led up to this time right now where I'm literally in a place in my life where I do not focus on all the things that Curt still does wrong. Because at the end of the day, I'm so thankful that I'm married to a man who is sexy, first of all, like a peacock chest. takes care of himself. I am so grateful because I've seen other, like we're 10 years apart. I'm 53, he's 43. I know a lot of 43-year-olds with the dad bod, with the beer gut, with the gut. I know some 33-year-olds men with the beer gut. They're already there. They've already put themselves to the side, which means their wife is also to the side. And there has to come a time where you have to wake up and realize, because of certain traditions or how you grew up in a house, like people, they plan for the wedding, right? They spend thousands of dollars on the wedding, but they don't plan a marriage. They get married, the first year is good, but then the kids come, the wife drops the husband, the husband goes from "you're the most amazing person in my life" to "oh, it's 9 o'clock, I'm so tired, the baby was sleeping on me all day long." And then it goes from there, when in reality, if we do this right, that means the husband, it's not going to be just the wife waking up throughout the night, changing the diapers. It's going to be the husband that's like, "how can I help you?"
It's a team.
It is a team, period. But here's the thing, this is life changing. So paying attention to something creates an energy, right? But being intentional about something is transforming. So when you know this, your focus, energy goes to where your focus is. And I promise you that if you focus your top priority energy on your marriage, on the type of wife you are, on the type of husband, what does my wife need? And wife, you have to communicate your needs. And sometimes you have to communicate them more and more and more. It is important to me that. And so now when we go to like things where there's other people, I'm like, "please hold my hand and walk with me." And it's more about the other kingdom men that might judge him because he's not doing that, that do that and understand like it's very important, like to walk with your wife and like, "I'm protecting you." That's really my main, like, why I want him to do that, because I don't want him to deal with the repercussions of some guy coming up and saying duh, 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 right? But at the end of the day, is so I communicate it. "Hey, please walk with me."
And I'm not offended
He's not
anymore by that.
offended.
Like I used to be
He needs me to
offended
tell him.
because I am like, and it's never not like you would even say, like, "do you not love me? Do you not think that
Do you
I'm
not want to
attractive?
be
Do you not
seen
want to
with
be
me?"
seen with me?" And I'm like, had zero to do with that in my mind. It's like, here's where we're going. Like, here's my vision. Here's the finish line, and I'm going there, and I'm so focused on it that I need her,
It's a
you
blind spot.
know, it's a blind spot to say, "hey, do you see this?" or "this is important to me," right?
Yeah.
And that's where we've grown, where we've become more unoffendable,
And just
which has been a game changer,
communication.
right? Like,
So just yesterday, we had a little disagreement, or it really, like, there was kind of an outburst. Um, and like it could have went a couple different ways. So for me, after the outburst, I didn't respond. I didn't even come and like whatever. I just kind of, I had things to do, so I left. But in my drive to the next place I was going, I was thinking, I am somebody who I've just trained myself. I'm part of the problem. Like, what's my part in this? So for me, and it's so funny how God works in this, because at the same time you were typing me out a message as I was voice sending, because the minute I sent that voice message, your message came through. And my message was, "I need to apologize for my part in this. I should have just dot, 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 dot." And though, let me bring this to your attention though, like this is an area of like da, 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 da.
yeah,
And it ended up amazing. It didn't ruin our day.
yeah, it
Because
lasted for 10
history,
minutes.
it would have I would have just not talked to him for a couple days. Literally.
Yeah.
I would have not talked to him for a couple days. And so for us, we are constantly evolving, constantly want to be better. And for me, it's just that I just want to I'm about my father's business, and I know my father's business is a marriage. It's the number one thing. So for us, having marriage coaches ourselves, and we were on a Zoom last in 2023 with some marriage coaches, because for me, I thought that, like, what if I don't reach my destiny and my kingdom purpose because my husband drags me down and holds me back? What do I do? I know a lot of women in this industry deal with this. Their husband is just holding them down, or they're slow, or they hold them back. So they think, and so they get divorced because what if I miss my mission? But if you're a Christian woman and you're married and you are some kingdom influencer, your marriage better be your number one ministry. If you're struggling in your marriage right now, but everything else over here is great, I promise you the right thing. And I know some of you don't want to hear this because it's going to be hard. It's going to be out of your comfort zone. It's going to be new. But if you want to arrive to heaven and meet your heavenly Father, and you want to have a good report, your marriage needs to be your number one focus. And I promise you that everything else will fall into place with you. That a lot of things that you'll get to understand that your husband will become the man who provides you the security, because that's my need. He'll be the man that will make you feel safe, right? He doesn't need to feel safe. I need to feel safe, right? And so upon those things, like this will be a natural process because blessings follow obedience. And that's just straight obedience. Like, do I want to always? You know what? I think a lot of women, they do keep themselves busy in those other things because they can win there, and it keeps them from dealing with themselves.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's that, and it's sweeping it under the rug,
Yeah.
right? Like it's easier to not deal with things sometimes, right? Than do the hard work, you know. So I want to close on this, friends, and that was excellent, babe. Is at the end of the day, you are the problem, which is a good thing because you now become the solution. And if you want to create a great marriage, a world-class marriage, when you learn how to focus on yourself and ask yourself the question, just like what Rachel said, well, where is my part in this? What could I have done better? What can I focus on with me that can potentially allow this situation to get better? You now will have power. You now have given yourself the power to take back control of your peace, of having more joy in your life, of creating more, harmony and intimacy in your marriage. So for my guys out there, what I want to encourage you to do, and for the ladies, is to ask yourself today, where do I need to focus more on myself and less on my spouse? Now, once again, that does not mean that you're focusing less on your spouse, on serving your spouse, and doing the things that you need to do to take your marriage to the next level. But what we mean here is when you can learn to focus more on yourself, okay, and growing yourself, all right? And then through that process, you begin to start asking yourself, okay, as I focus more on myself, how can I learn and grow on serving my spouse, focusing more on what they're doing good and how can I serve them? That will be an absolute game changer in your marriage. And I also want you to understand this, that, we've mentioned this a couple times, that we've had coaches, that we are coaches. And we see people when we work with them that in such a short period of time have absolute breakthroughs, and
Happening right now.
and in my opinion, I look at 2 or 3 relationships of just people that we know in the last year, that if they would have just sought out counsel, if they would have just sought out a coach, not only could they have probably, brought back 20, 30 plus years of marriage, right? They could have been redeemed. It could have been renewed. Also for the guys, they probably, because I know a lot of men do this where, we're money motivated and we want to make money. They lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Why? Because this wasn't a priority, versus saying, hey, I need some help here. And that's okay. So I want to encourage you today, friend, if you've listened to this podcast, and you feel like, hey, I could use some help, DM Rachel or I. Just send us a message, Instagram, Facebook,
Well,
whatever.
here's the person. It's the person that's rocking out in those areas that you're so comfortable in, the things that you can wake up and do, but your marriage is struggling.
That's
do
you.
this.
And understand this, I want to end with this, is marriage is not easy. Like I tell people all this all the time, and I'm still growing. Rachel's mentioned that she is too. Like it is easy for me to do certain things. All right. It is a focus of mine. I have to focus on it daily and I need help with it. And and that's why I believe that you probably need help with it if this is hitting a certain chord with you. But I just want to give you hope. That was the message and the mission of today, is to give you hope, to let you know we've been there, we've done that, we've got the t-shirt and hat, as Rachel likes to say, but to also understand that one of the keys to breakthrough in your marriage is exactly what we've talked about today, is you have to learn how to focus on yourself, get your own self right, learn how to point out the positives in your spouse, and watch and see what happens. So, hey, friends, thanks for tuning in today with us this week. We hope that some of the things that we've covered and shared in our own journey over the last 20 years are going to be a springboard to you creating the champion life and the champion marriage that God has for you. God bless. We'll see you on the next episode. See you guys.